All right, take a look at campaigns, nominations, elections. We're going to look at the role of political parties here and the importance they have in political participation. Take a look at this cartoon, 19 candidates and counting. That's kind of going back to the 2016 when they had all these different people trying to run in both political parties. It's just kind of chaos there during that nomination and primary process. But we want to explain the different processes, whether it's a presidential election versus a congressional election in the House and the Senate, organization and strategies that people use then in the election process. So being a candidate, again, being a political candidate, you're part of your party. There's splinter parties where maybe you break away a little bit. You have different interests. You have an ideological party. You stand on a certain principles. You're a little more extreme. Example could be like a socialist party. There's single issue parties. Taxpayers. They're usually minor single issues, but they're really strong on those things. And then there's broad coalitions, which are your Democrats and Republicans. Those are your two big political parties that have a lot of pull. You want to appeal to a broad coalition. Again, most votes wins. And when you're trying to get elected, the American system encourages those two because it's most votes win. So those two major political parties are going to run against each other. A third minor party doesn't really get anything if you're for second place. So you want to be part of one of those parties most likely. Again, it's first past the post system. Single member districts in our House and our Senate, or in our House, so whoever gets the most votes in that district wins. And that's how most of the elections are. We'll get to the presidential election when we talk about Electoral College. What should I be? So again, looking at congressional elections versus presidential elections, the pros here, the pros for a congressional election, you can look at more local issues, especially in the House. You're more local. The Senate, you're focused on the state. You can take credit for things that are happening in your area, your district. You can meet more people, have a little bit more individual rapport with those individuals. Again, you can always blame Washington. Like, I'm trying to do this for you, but those people in Washington, the executive branch, are not. The cons, though, low voter turnout a lot of times in many of the elections. You still get blamed for national issues. It's very expensive, and it's hard to manage your time, whether it's in D.C. and then you come back, and you're also tied to a political party. But what if you don't completely believe in all those beliefs? Looking at presidential election, the pros here, big picture. Big picture effects, big issues here. You have a lot of staff you can rely on. You have support from the whole national party. You can also help individuals within your political party, local candidates, and they can support you. You are usually looked at as the party leader as well. And then if you are Mr. Melanis, you get to launch nuclear weapons if you're having a bad day. Kind of a joke there, right? Cons, dealing with Congress. You have to deal with maybe a divided Congress every day, trying to get your budget passed or your agenda passed, but they're not going to agree with you. You're always exposed to everything. You have high risk. Failures are yours, right? You're being blamed for everything, always being criticized. These steps then in a presidential campaign, right? So you get mentioned as a contenders. People brought up Biden when he first wasn't sure. They thought he'd be a good candidate. All these other people would be brought up. Maybe their former senator, governor, or maybe a vice president of some sort, right? Then they commit. They start talking to their family. They're talking about it. Again, it's about a 2-year process when you start campaigning. Will it be inconvenient? Biden did not run in 2016 because of the death of his son, and he didn't want to inconvenience his family anymore. Then you start raising money. You committed. You set up a political action committee. You had fundraisers. Again, this year's a little bit different. They still campaign and send out emails and all those things. Start small, think big. But your functions weren't the same like they were in the past. But they still find a way to organize and get money. Then you have your staff. You have your campaign director, people dealing with your finances, your media, where to go, here, there, who to talk to, all those staff assistants. Then you have a vision. What's my platform? What am I going to say on these certain issues? And then you start running. Again, you often have to then pick a vice president candidate once you win the candidacy for your political party. So again, what is your vision? What do you want the tone to be? How personal are you going to get with the other individual? How personal are you going to get with yourself? How are you going to manage your time and your campaign? What issues do you want to address the most? And then how are you going to use all these resources that you are getting through your campaign? So it's changing. It's ever changed, but it's over the past 40 years. It's really different. Years before, most households had televisions. Campaign was personalized. You know, voters had to kind of depend on just what people were saying on the news. Now you can really see the candidates up front, right? Voters receive information about a candidate from one individual, either from the candidate or the person who's working on their behalf, not from all these different areas and news avenues. Campaigns today are often less personal, with voters receiving information through internet and radio and social media and more interviews and this leak and that, and it's mostly through advertising that we come to dislike at times. Less party centered, more candidate centered, right? You're voting for the person sometimes rather than the party. And again, must form your own political organizations and rely on them for campaign support. You can't just rely on public money. You have to get these organizations to donate money. So the professional campaign is now commonplace for candidates, even for local offices, to hire consultants. You're looking at consultants, figuring out numbers, who to identify, who to go to when you're trying to go door to door, right? This person voted this way in this election. Let's go talk to them. They devise a strategy for months and months before the general election of how you are going to tackle these issues, how you're going to tackle the voters. Again, where are you going to get the money from? Who are you going to get endorsements from? What does that mean? How will that affect your campaign? Who are you going to meet with? And what areas of the country are going to have a small town meeting versus a big campaign rally? All those things these political consultants are looking at. Visibility then, your strategy, or how visible are you going to be? The key issue is the candidate's name recognition. How recognizable are you? Do we know you? So are you a mayor from a small city, or are you a former vice president? If the candidate is well known, maybe they were the incumbent or they had another position, then you have to remind them of what I've done for you, right? Get them to remobilize for you. If they're unknown, you can challenge the other candidate and this is what you have not done. And that's how you can get the voters to know you. Again, another winning strategy would be after that's accomplished, challengers frequently will opt to criticize. This is what they've done. This hasn't worked. Look at the incumbent, right? They're not doing this for you. This is why you should vote for me. If it's a third-party candidate, maybe you're looking at we're sick of these two parties. This is what our party can do for you. Typically, though, the major party candidates will label third-party candidates as unworthy because they know there's not going to be enough votes there, so you kind of push them to the side. Using public opinion polls, connecting Unit 4 here. Candidate for president and other major offices use these to kind of campaign or fine-tune their campaign and where should I go? These people believe in me in this county. Well, I don't need to go back there as often. Maybe I have to go to this county, this state, to reinforce my ideas. You have focus groups. You're going to rely on far fewer people than a poll, but it goes greater in depth, right? Tell me why you feel this way, right? And that's why they have town halls a lot. And it leads to great discussion, maybe for the candidate on their issues, maybe on the candidate's character and positions. And again, you're always looking at different issues. You're looking at the emotions of these participants to see how important it is for them. Now get into the elections and the actual functioning of them, what the process is. There's closed primaries. Okay, so closed primaries are for registered voters only. So you have to pick a party, and you go down the line which Republican I want or which Democrat I want. Open primaries are restricted to voting for candidates of one party. So if you look at it closed, they're restricted to voting for candidates of the party in which the voters registered. So you have to be a registered Republican. In Illinois, it's open. You don't have to register as a political party, but you have to pick one when you get to the primary itself. There used to be blanket primaries where you could vote for anyone in political parties. So maybe you didn't want someone, you'd vote against them, back and forth, and they deemed that unconstitutional. There's also runoff primaries. So in some states, if no candidate receives an absolute majority, so more than 50%, then they'll have a runoff between the top two candidates. So a special election for that. Again, each state is determining their primary, their caucus, and that's important because if you are one of the first states, you become more important in those elections. So you want to be first, you want to be influential. States have to compare their schedule, look at see if it's possible. As a result, the primary season is essentially over by March, right? Some of the most important states then have their early primaries, and then by March they're done. Some states have their primaries in July, and it really doesn't matter because a lot of the candidates drop out of those primary races. So again, choosing the nominees so early, then there's a long time in the news, a long time to their national convention, a lot more time for the campaigns to occur. Caucuses are a little bit different. This happens in Iowa, for example, which are meetings of the party members. So if you go to the caucus, you go to like a Democrat caucus, and you are put into a room at a certain time, and then you pick what part of the room you want to go in for that candidate. And they count up the amount of people, and they do a percentage, and each little individual Democrat caucus, and they number them up, and you see which individual is going to win that state. So it's a little bit different. It's not like you go and vote. You can register right there. You kind of line up. People are seeing who you vote for. So it's much different than a regular primary. Looking at debates, so the function, the role of debates, again, they're set up by a commission. They're run by the news organizations, modern debates. There's three of them. I believe we had two this past year due to the pandemic and issues there. Usually maybe one for the vice presidents. But again, it's to educate likely voters. What is your take on this? What is the issues at hand? How do they appear? Do they look strong? Are they good public speakers? They're maybe going to have to talk about their character. When it gets closer and closer again, they're going to be supported by these, like I said, the media outlets, and it's going to get a little bit, the issues are going to be a little tighter, and it's going to be the same issues over and over because that's what media wants to hear. But there's debates in all different races, whether it's congressional races or governor races, but they often have them in those areas as well. Okay, if you're looking at debates, what do we expect of them, right? Put high expectations, maybe then dilutes a politician who may not have experience. And then actually getting to the voters. Issues, issues, issues. People want to hear about issues. They want to hear about the economy. Right now would be social issues are always important. They want to hear about different issues. Okay, so the economy, voters are most sensitive to what's going on for them. And incumbents, have you done a good job or how have you created a positive economy? Farmers, for example, they want to hear about prices and energy and ethanol and green energy and what's going to happen. Union members want to look at, are you pro-business, pro-worker? Are you going to mobilize for them? Are you going to look at minimum wage, tariffs, things like that? Always looking at maybe abortion in the life debate. All those issues are always important, and people want to know what your stance is on them. You also want to uh, be have a good appearance to the voters, have this positive image, have some patriotism there as well. Now the Electoral College. Okay? The last thing, Electoral College here. The framers wanted a method of ensuring small states some equality to large states. Reality is, though, Electoral College has faced over 700 attempted changes, right? So a lot of people view it as too old, outdated. Large states are dominating. Still see candidates more frequently than small states, right? Because we don't care about your three electoral votes. We want the 55, for example, or the 29 in Florida, or whatever it is. So again, intention was kind of good, but hasn't worked out today what we really wanted. They also, again, maybe didn't trust the people. They also thought this was an easier way to collect the votes and bring it to DC. So the process here again, you have the general election, first Tuesday in November. After the first Monday, the voters vote for basically the electors. So if you win that state, those electors then go to the Electoral College, and they pick their top presidential candidate and then their top vice president candidate, and those individuals run together. They have to reach 270 or more. If the top presidential and vice presidential candidates receive fewer than that, decisions are made in the House and Senate. Each state gets one vote in the House and votes in the Senate. Then, if the presidential candidate receives 26 or more, the president is elected. So, if it's in the House first, House representatives vote for president from top three candidates by state. Majority, 26 votes, is needed to win. If no presidential receives 26 by January 20th, and vice president has been elected, vice president becomes acting president, and president is elected by the House. Okay, so different ways here. I don't think that will really ever occur, but there's a lot of different maps here to getting the president and figuring that out. But because the president and vice president run together, they're probably going to get similar votes, so it probably would be much less confusing. And looking at your last two electoral college maps here, okay, looking at the states that supported the candidates, the number that Biden got versus Trump, and then the numbers that Trump got versus Clinton in 2016.